Perfect. Hey guys, welcome to a new client interview. Today we have Cassie at Hoppier, and we're going to be talking about some of the results we got after we changed the homepage and we try to, in a few other pages, and try to go a little bit more up markets, right? But before we get ahead of ourselves, Cassie, why don't you just introduce yourself? What do you guys do at Hoppier, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Hoppier. What we do is we make it incredibly easy for salespeople, marketers, and HR people to issue prepaid Visa cards to reward and incentivize actions from clients, employees, or prospects.
Perfect. That's also a short description because sometimes it's easy to go off on a tangent. Awesome. And what if you were to take us back to when we worked together, like around a year ago and stuff like that, because it took us a while to book this in. It was probably my fault. What were some of the problems that you were facing at the time?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem for us was, I think there was the one problem that we had at the time was we felt like our website didn't really describe the value propositions that we had. But in the reality, that was just like a sign of many other problems that existed that were a lot bigger. So one of them being just positioning, and the way that we communicated the positioning and the value propositions was just off. It wasn't really what the client cared about. We didn't really understand the client that cared about what we were doing, and we didn't understand how to communicate it. And so that was like the biggest thing. And then once we understood the positioning, then we realized that all of these other problems, whether it was the website, whether it was the way that our sales team communicated the value proposition with customers, whether it was ads that we were running, whether it was all of these different things, it made it a lot more clear in terms of what we needed to do to grow.
Got it. Because I even remember at the time you were focusing too much on selling the credit cards and be able to create them and stuff like that. Whereas what you're actually selling is the ability to buy it anywhere in the world, incentivize your employees and your customers and all that stuff. So how did that change in your head?
Yeah, so initially we thought that our customer, like we had this one customer that was, we had a bunch of customers that were using us for different things. And we had one customer type that was using us for allowances and stipends for employees. And we thought, hey, this is really interesting, but that's just like one subset of customers. We had all of these others that were using us for different things. And I think by doing a lot of the exercises that we work through and talking to you and learning about and trying to understand our customer and the different cohorts of customers, it really helped us to refine the positioning and to understand like why people actually use our product, right? And so by doing that, we just really narrowed our focus.
Got it. So at the time, we kind of had like a lot of people, different people using the products. I think we already have like several landing pages, and it was becoming a bit of a mess trying to cover everyone in every industry and stuff like that. So how did that what did your head look like when you had all these people that you wanted to target versus what we've done and try to narrow it down?
Yeah, so like what did it look like before? Yeah, so before it was kind of like I think before the way we were approaching it was just like, hey, we have all of this data. Let's look at the data and let's try to understand like who the right customer is. And I think that the data was like kind of helpful, but more importantly, I think it's just doing thought exercises to really truly understand like what are the unique selling points. And I love when you talk, I know you talked about like the irresistible offer. And I think that was one of the most powerful exercises we've ever done for the business. And something that, I could apply to anything in the future is like thinking about what is the irresistible offer, what differentiates you, who cares about it, why, and like how to position that as something that really makes you something unique that people are going to pay attention to, right? And so by doing that thought exercise, rather than just like purely looking at the data and trying to like, think off the top of my head, it really forces you to like be real with yourself and think through what the unique selling points are and what the irresistible offer is of the business. So I think that was the biggest thing that really helped us. And it's like a simple thing, but it's very easy to do it the wrong way, I would say. And like you need a little bit of coaching to like think about it the right way, right? It's easy to make a lot of mistakes when doing positioning.
Yeah, it's very common for clients to assume is one thing, and that's like the surface level problem that they're hitting, not the underlying one. That's what people are buying anyway, and that makes a difference of how much they're willing to pay and who we attract. So if we were to look back at because people that are buying SaaS, they always compare between what they're using now and what they could be using and stuff like that. In your case, some of these things weren't even software. It would be like gift cards or just doing gifts manually or just similar competitors. So how do you think your offer stacks up now versus how it did before?
Yeah, so I think the offer, it still stacks up the same way. We just didn't know like how to communicate the value. But when we talked to the customers that just love the product, it was really clear that, hey, like they love the product because it works in 60 plus countries. They love the product because versus a traditional gift card that will not work in different countries. They love the product because they can brand the entire experience, and then they love the product because they don't have this concept of breakage and they can track like who uses the product versus a gift card where you use the gift card and then or maybe you send it to someone and you don't know if it gets used. You also just like lose that value. Whereas with Hoppier, you can send a card to like a local cafe and right away when it gets used. If it doesn't get used, you get the money back. You can send it to someone who lives in a rural area or someone that lives in a different country halfway across the world, and it's going to work. And so just being able to understand how to communicate that, like that was the biggest thing. And so now, like it didn't, like we can communicate that from the very beginning versus waiting for someone to discover it, have to do a little bit of work on their own. And like, people are lazy. Like you have to just make it so crystal clear, right? Like your attention, I don't know, I shouldn't say people are lazy, but our attention spans are very short. Yeah. Human attention span is so short. And so making that so clear from the beginning and then having a consistent message all the way through the customer journey was something that we needed to do. And then that allowed us to, now, like you're saying, like stack up against, against the alternatives and just make it more clear how we're different.
Perfect. Yeah, because I remember when we worked on it, like it sounded really good. There's no way that other people could compete with what you're offering when we explain it properly. So if we, how do you think this affected other areas of business, right? Because you obviously have the demo side of things, the sign up, because at the time you had like self-serve, and then we kind of switched more to the demo side of things at some point. How do you think that the way you explain the product and the offer and all the stuff affected all areas of business?
Yeah, so immediately we started to understand the types of keywords that we wanted to target, both for ads and also for creating content. That just became more clear. So any of the channels that we ran, or webinars, or any channels that we ran, it just became more clear who cared about this and how to get their attention like immediately, rather than like before. And we could see it in the conversion before, where conversion was very low across all channels. And then as soon as we started to understand, okay, this is what people really care about, this is how we can get their attention immediately. Then once we started doing that, we saw conversion double, triple, and then we saw new customer growth just dramatically increase. And so we actually we grew from 2020 to 2021 by about 600%. I think we started working together towards the end of 2020. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing how just understanding that and using that messaging just dramatically increased. So that was the biggest thing. And then it impacted growth. And then I would say the other thing that it really helped with was our product roadmap. So understanding who our customer was and what they cared about, and then doubling down on those things just made it so much easier. Like before, we were kind of going in like 3 or 4 separate directions with our product roadmap. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, like it just never felt like super clear what to build. But after we, narrowed that focus and we understood what customers really care about, then we could double down on those things. And it just became so much easier to prioritize what to build.
Yeah. And that's very interesting because it's very easy to slow you guys down and waste a ton of money on product development because of that stuff. How do you think that this also affected the reactions you're getting when you're presenting the products, the demo, or offering to sell it, or when you're trying to sell a lot of different credits and attract those bigger deals? How did that change the reaction they had? Did they had a reaction before where just say, it sounds like a nice to have, or like how did that change? Because that's a common reaction that some SaaS companies get.
Yeah, I think for us, like the bigger, like I think at the demo stage, like I think what helped most was at the awareness stage, because I think at the demo stage, either you didn't get it or you did get it and you were like, oh wow, like this is amazing, like this is great. But really where like the positioning helped us most was at that awareness stage, like a stage before. But like where it helped there, like at the demo stage, is that we had higher conversion because it became more clear what the product was and how it was different. And so we got higher quality leads. We stopped getting these like low quality leads that would get on a demo and they wouldn't get it. And they would say, oh, I thought it was this actually. And so, and like, yeah, like, sure, maybe we had more of these like low quality leads, but like, it's just a waste of everyone's time. Right. And so I would say just like lead quality increased, and like we understood the talking points to focus on and how to have that consistent messaging from the awareness stage until the, up until the stage of conversion, and how to speak to the customer to get them to convert.
Got it. Okay. And what other results have you seen like since then in terms of like the difference like before and after, difference in lead quality, number of leads, or deals you started closing, or people you started attracting?
Yeah, so I think in lead growth, we probably saw from 2020 roughly to 2021, like a 3 to 4x monthly lead growth, which was amazing. We started to close some bigger deals. So we closed our first 6-figure deal. Just like, I would say like everything, like positioning is like the heartbeat of a company. And as soon as you get positioning right and you start to focus on it, then it just helps everything. Like it is, in my opinion, it's probably like one of the 3 most important things for a business. Right. Like it's funny because at first, when we first started working with you, I thought it was like, oh, Pedro's just going to help us to like design, like create a nice website and like design a nice website with like good website copy. But it's so much more than that. It's like the positioning is the core. And that's, I feel like people, it's like a common thing where people think, oh, like I need a website, like I need a nice website. It's like a very sexy thing that people think about. And it's funny because if you look at like search volume of like, the keywords of like, how do I improve my startup positioning on SEMrush or Ahrefs, it's very low compared to how do I improve, how do I make my website better, right?
Yeah, so it's like the quick fix that everyone wants. It's funny because that's the onboarding exercise I do with every new clients. They want to get into the landing page right away, like you guys wanted at the time, and then I just forced you to go through a week-long positioning exercise that was just a bunch of bullet points that probably looked a little weird. But that was the thing that defined all the landing pages we changed.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Awesome. So what do you think was the ROI more or less on what we worked on?
Um, so hard to like it, I mean, it was over, I would say over like 100x. Like it's kind of crazy. Like I think it's really high. Like it's really high. Like it's going to be, I would say if you are unsure about your positioning, like it's almost a guarantee, like 10x. Like for
Mhm.
us, I think about it as like not just the revenue growth, but like the enterprise value of the business. Like if I were to sell the business today compared to when we first started working together, it would probably be worth at least like 100 times more, right? Um, and I would say like you like the like working with you is like played a pretty big role in that, because although like we did a lot of the legwork, like you really helped to guide us to understand the the things to focus on, um, not just from like purely like a positioning perspective, but also from like a, okay, like if this is your positioning, here are like the things that like we should probably focus on. um, so yeah, I think for us, like 100x probably. I would say for any company, if you're unsure about positioning and you want to refine your positioning, then at least a 10x.
Yeah, I mean that sounds really good. That's something I never thought about, even the exit value at the time, because sometimes I just focused on what are the things that we can play with next and tweak and optimize. So that sounds really good. How do you think I helped you in specific to fix some of these problems or get these uh like results?
Um, so like I think the like specifically,
Mhm.
so I know. So I was a part of most of the conversations, but I probably missed like maybe 30% where we had someone from our team, or 40% of them.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I think initially, like the biggest thing was just like the irresistible offer. Like that was huge for us. Of course, helping with the landing page, increasing conversion there as a result. Um, Overall messaging improved. Like I think like you touched like when you fix positioning and you help with like changing positioning and improving positioning, that just touches everything, right? Whether it's like hard to measure, I would say, but
Mhm.
like you touch everything in some way or another.
Awesome. That sounds great. I mean, obviously, it looks like with that type of ROI, you definitely would recommend me to someone else, as you've done a few times, because
Hmm.
I always appreciate the referrals. What would you say to someone that is on the fence of starting working with me, or just booking that initial call to figure out if I can help them? Because at some stage you were at that point as well.
Yeah, I think when we talked to you, it was pretty clear. Um, I think you need to like my advice would be, first of all, just talk to Pedro.
Mhm.
Like that's the most important thing. Like like it's not going to hurt getting on a quick 15-minute call, and it's awesome that you offer that. I think it's amazing because people get a glimpse into like how you can help them, and you provide so much value on that call, even though it is just like 15 minutes. I was kind of skeptical at first, but as soon as we talked to you, it was like, oh, Pedro really knows his shit, and like from that point, we were kind of thinking, okay, like what um, like what are the actual things we're gonna do? But there's just like a lot, I think, and I think maybe that's one thing is like I don't know how much you share of like the curriculum of things that you work on with companies,
Mhm.
but knowing what I know now, it is so much more than what we initially thought it was. Like initially, I think we were like, oh, we're getting like this is the scope of what I thought you would help us with. It's like this big. But then after it was like, this is everything you ended up helping us with, because when we saw like I thought it was like, oh, you're going to help us to like improve our landing page, but in the reality it's like positioning, messaging, the landing page, um, what channels to focus on, um, like different kinds of channels that we're focusing on and how to improve, from like ad copy to like partner programs to this and that. Like kind of everything, because positioning touches everything. So
yeah, that sounds great, because that's what makes the job fun. I also do that on purpose because I want to attract someone with specific thing in mind, and then I kind of show them that I can do like a few other things. Otherwise, the positioning would be kind of generic as well. It's just pretty fun when I get to apply messaging, strategies to other areas, like the onboarding sequence they might have, or the emails they're sending out, or the offer to sell them to the next plan and make more money per customer, or how do we change the pricing models by itself. Like a lot of things that we can do that is still about messaging, because messaging is just selling them on the next step, which might be to book that demo or to sign up to the next plan or just try it out in the first place. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, anything else that you'd like to add? I think this interview was pretty amazing so far.
Yeah, I think the one thing was like, if I wish we started working with you sooner. And I think, for any company, like I'll say this, like this is how much I can vouch for like what you're doing is like any company that I would start in the future, I'd want to, get your feedback and work with you as we're launching the idea, at the early stages. Like I think it's worth it for every company to think about. And even if you're not like in the early stages, like I've referred a few companies that have been around for 5 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for them, it's even more valuable because they're thinking about like, how do we, positioning is something you always have to update and think about. And so for them, it was like super useful too. So.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's my sweet spot anyway, because we have more data about the market and they probably have more volume in terms of traffic. So that sounds great. So where can people find you, learn more about you, learn more about Hoppier and where you're selling?
Yeah, so just check us out at hoppier.com, like happier with an O, hoppier.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter. I'm_Ait. That's IM_AITE.
Perfect. Okay. So guys, if you like the results that you're seeing here, you're curious to see how this applies to you, just go to cortez.design/apply. Let's jump on a quick intro call, try to figure out if I can help you in the first place, because sometimes the timing isn't right, or it's too soon, or we don't have many insights for the market, or not enough traffic, or stuff like that. Let's figure out if it's a good fit. And if so, we just book another call to figure out what are the changes we need to make, and so on and so forth. Because like Cassie was saying here, I only work with people that I'm sure I can help, and that's how we get them. That's 50% of getting the results that we're seeing here, right? So Cassie, thanks a lot for being here and vouching for all these awesome results. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the interview.
Cool. Thanks, Pedro.